Macarena. Get it? Because it's mock draft. Macarena. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, a podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and today we are diving in to the final mock draft before the 2019 NFL Draft. Now, before we get into that, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to all my Patreons over at patreon.com/TomGrossi Comedy. If you would like to support me and get some cool rewards, check that out like these other fine folk already have. Now, we've already done one mock draft, and now we will do 2 mock drafts. We also did the 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers this past Friday. You can check that video out. And so in this one, I've broken down potential trade scenarios that we're going to be talking about. And so this is including 2 big trades that I could see happening within this draft. But who knows, there could be a whole bunch more, considering that I already had this all planned out. And then the Seahawks traded to the Chiefs, and now the Chiefs didn't have a first-round pick, and so I had to redo basically the entire thing. But I'm not bitter or angry or upset at all, even though the Chiefs literally gave up D Ford for a second-rounder. That was stupid. But let's jump into this bad boy, and that's starting with pick numero uno. Now, in the last mock draft, I didn't include any trades or anything like that. I am so torn on what's going to happen. I think Kyler Murray is going to get chosen either way. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if the Cardinals decided to hold on to the number 1 pick and go with a guy like Bosa, or they could even go Williams if they really wanted to. But here, what I see happening and what I could see occurring is the Raiders trading up to the number 1 pick, trading their number 4, number 27, and their 35th, which is obviously in the second round. They would also hold on to their 24th pick to get the first pick, and they get Mr. Kyler Murray, their QB from Oklahoma, who will lead them into the promised land until John Gruden destroys them. But yeah, it's neither here nor there. And I think considering the Raiders have 3 first-round picks, this makes sense for them to do because they'll also be able to still address a position of need later in the first round. They got first rounders next year to draft too, so they're in pretty good shape. And that means that the San Francisco 49ers, who are up next, are going to be going with Nick Bosa, the defensive end from Ohio State, arguably the best person in this entire draft. This just makes sense. Again, they could go with Josh Allen, but I think Bosa's the better player here, and I think that's pretty much unanimous. They could go with Williams if they really wanted to get that defensive tackle, but I just think that getting an elite pass rusher for them makes more sense. Then number 3, the New York Jets. Again, they want to trade out of this spot. I don't know who's willing to trade up into the 3rd spot. From where we're looking at now, maybe the Dolphins, but I have them actually trading later. And so I'm going to say the Jets are going to stay where they are. They could use an elite pass rusher, and that's what they'll get in Josh Allen, the defensive end from Kentucky. And then moving on to the number 4, which will be the Cardinals, because they swapped picks with the Raiders. They will get Quinnen Williams, a defensive tackle out of Alabama, arguably, right up there with Bosa as the 2 best guys in this draft. And so I think if you're a Cardinals fan, you have to be pretty happy about this, that you'll get an additional first and second rounder in this particular mock, and you get one of the best guys in the draft to shore up that defense. Number 5, and this was in the old mock draft as well, I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle from Houston, in that Ed Oliver has been shooting up draft boards for the past few weeks now, and rightfully so. The guy did well during the combine. He has amazing tape. I did a whole breakdown on him. If he falls to 12, the Packers need to go and jump and get him immediately, but I could see him going within the top 5. Number 6, we have the New York Giants, and I'm going to have them go, again, not QB, but with Rashawn Gary, the defensive end from Michigan. The Giants, they have a lot of holes. They need offensive line help. They need a quarterback. They also need defensive help, including cornerback and safety, but we won't really talk about that. Instead, we'll address that they'll get their pass rusher here too, because they haven't had a dominant pass rusher in some time, and so they'll be able to get that with their number 6 pick and potentially trade that number 17 pick for the QB. Then moving on to number 7, the Jaguars. Again, I think this is one of the easier picks, and this is something that I said in the previous mock draft, but I feel that we're going to go with Jawaan Taylor, the offensive tackle from Florida, just because they're going to want to protect Nick Foles, who they just paid a crap ton of money to. And Jawaan Taylor is obviously the best offensive tackle in the NFL draft this year, so this just makes a lot of sense. Then number 8, where the Lions should be picking, I feel they are going to be trading down because they're looking to trade down to address some holes. And so I say they're going to trade down, and they're going to swap picks with the Miami Dolphins. Miami will give up their number 13 pick and their second-round pick at number 48. And the Dolphins will get Dwayne Haskins, the QB from Ohio State. And this makes sense for a number of reasons. I was looking kind of at seeing the dumpster fire the Dolphins are. And a lot of the times in any of the interviews with the front office guys, they're basically saying that, you know, the number one priority for us is to get a quarterback. So they could sit back and they can wait at number 13 and hope that a QB falls to them. They could potentially go with a Daniel Jones, or if Drew Lock isn't picked before then. But the reason I have them swapping out with the Lions is because the Broncos and Bengals could potentially draft QBs, and the Redskins could even trade up to go past the Dolphins. So I feel the Dolphins are going to be a bit aggressive here to make sure they get a guy that they like, and that's going to be Dwayne Haskins. Number 9, the Buffalo Bills. I had them going with DK Metcalf to help out good old Josh Allen in Buffalo, but instead I'm gonna switch things up a little bit. I could see them either going on the defensive line or offensive line, but I'm gonna have them go offensive line here, and they're gonna go with Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle from Alabama, to help out Josh Allen. While they do need a wide receiver, and yes, I know that they got Cole Beasley, I think they can address that later in the draft and snag one of the best offensive tackles in this draft early on to give Josh Allen some help. Moving on to number 10, originally I had Drew Lock going in this position, but the Broncos I don't think are going to pass up the linebacker Devin White from LSU. This will shore up their defense. They have Joe Flacco, who obviously is not the QB for the future, but considering and taking a look at the 2020 draft and looking at that QB class, I think they're going to wait a year and they're going to roll the dice with Joe Flacco and see what they got, and Devin White will definitely provide some punching force to that defense there. Then number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals, right? They got a new regime. They're going to wind up getting a new quarterback most likely, and that's going to be Drew Lock, the QB from Missouri. No, he's not going to the Packers. Stop mocking him there. Stop it. Stop. And so considering that obviously they got Andy Dalton, who is Andy Dalton, this makes sense in that they actually are going to be able to secure a QB for the future. Obviously, everyone's least favorite redheaded will be gone sometime soon, and the Bengals could potentially actually be a good team after this pick. Probably not, though. Then number 12, the Green Bay Packers, and everyone's like, oh, here comes the TJ Hockenson pick. Wrong, even though I love TJ Hockenson, and if he falls to the Packers, I'd be super happy if they drafted him. But instead of doing that, Montez Sweat is going to be my guy, the defensive end from Mississippi State. Sweat makes a lot of sense here. I know that we got our pass rushers in both Smiths, but this would make a lot of sense for a number of reasons. One, he could line up, he could play outside linebacker, he could play defensive end. Mike Daniels is not going to be there next year. And also he can line up opposite of the Smiths, and he could potentially move Zadarius Smith into the inside if we really wanted to get crazy. And so I think that this just, because Pettin is talking about not playing a traditional 3-4, he's going to mix things up. I think having a weapon like Montez Sweat is going to allow a bunch of different looks for Mike Pettin to try out. And listen, we get a potential elite pass rusher falling to 12. I know there's been recent reports too that teams are really down on Sweat because of his heart condition, but if the Packers are okay with drafting him, considering, you know, he passes all the medical tests, then I trust this pick. And then number 13, Detroit Lions, since they got this from the Dolphins, I'm going to have them going with TJ Hockenson, the tight end out of Iowa. This provides a huge weapon for Matthew Stafford in the passing game, while they already have a pair of really good receivers. You also have a great blocker in this, and hopefully they don't, you know, screw him up like they did Eric Ebron. And all the Lions fans are going to come in and be like, Eric Ebron dropped so many passes, which is correct, but you're a Lions fan, so no, you're wrong. Then number 14, the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to see them go defensive tackle here with Christian Wilkins from Clemson to shore up that defensive line. They need some help on that defensive line. And obviously, their offense, they have pretty much the weapons that they need. So I see them addressing defense here, even though they could go with offensive line. Then number 15, the Washington Redskins. While I could see them going for a quarterback, I'm going to see them going with a wide receiver threat here in DK Metcalf, the wide receiver from Ole Miss. For me, the guy has a ton of upside. He presents a big risk for me in that he doesn't know how to run a lot of routes, but he has the tangibles to be a very successful, dominant wide receiver, and I don't think the Redskins are going to allow that to pass them by. Number 16, the Carolina Panthers. I see them going edge here with Brian Burns from Florida State. I think the Carolina Panthers would be thrilled if Brian Burns fell this far. I think Brian Burns, for me, in the beginning is going to have to be a rotational player in that he is not really great at stopping the run, but he is fantastic at getting to the quarterback, something that the Carolina Panthers desperately need. Then number 17, the Giants. And again, I thought about changing this at the last second, but I'm pretty confident in this. 17, they're either going to, in my opinion, dress offensive line and wait until the later rounds to draft a QB, or not draft a QB at all and wait until 2020. But here, I'm going to say they go with a QB. They get a guy that they're interested in, and that's Daniel Jones, the QB from Duke, to be Eli Manning's successor. It just makes more logical sense for me if they wind up getting an early QB and allow him to learn from Eli Manning, and instead of just throwing one random quarterback into the fire in 2020. That would seem to be the logical thing. But then again, the Giants are anything but logical. Then number 18, the Minnesota Vikings. I see them getting Cody Ford, the guard/offensive tackle from Oklahoma. The Vikings have desperately needed offensive line help for centuries at this point, in that they need to protect their $84 million investment in Kirk Cousins, and so this is going to be that pick. Then number 19, the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to have them go with Clelin Ferrell, the defensive end from Clemson, and again, I had them originally in the old mock going A.J. Brown, but if Ferrell falls this far, I don't see them passing him up. Also, they need to be able to get to the quarterback desperately. Then moving on to number 20, the Steelers. That's going to be the same pick as last time. I see they're going to go with Devin Bush, the inside linebacker from Michigan, to shore up that linebacking core. Obviously still missing Ryan Shazier, and this is going to go a long way to rejuvenating that linebacking core. Then number 21, the Seahawks. Originally, I had them going offensive line here, but now that they have 2 first-round picks because of the Chiefs, I say they're going to actually go for it here and go with Noah Fant, the tight end from Iowa. They have needed a replacement for Jimmy Graham, and this will be a great addition and great weapon for Russell Wilson, who is now the highest-paid quarterback in the NFL, and I feel like they'll address offensive line later in the draft. Then number 22, the Baltimore Ravens. I see them going with A.J. Brown, the wide receiver from Ole Miss. The Ravens do not have wide receivers. That's just the statement. It's not that they have they have nobody there. I honestly can't name a wide receiver off the top of my head from the Baltimore Ravens. You guys need someone to throw the ball to, and so they're going to get A.J. Brown here, would be a phenomenal slot player. Then number 23, the Houston Texans, who need offensive line help, are going to address just that and go with Garrett Bradbury, the offensive lineman from NC State. Bradbury is one of the top offensive linemen within this draft, and in a weak offensive tackle class, I think you're going to see a bunch of offensive tackles go flying off of the board by the end of the first round, but the Texans are going to get their guy. Then number 24, the Raiders. I originally, in this first iteration, before the Seahawks got another pick, I was going to have them go with Noah Fant because then they'll give a nice new weapon for their new quarterback. But here, instead, I think they're going to go with Josh Jacobs, the running back from Alabama, because then you'll have a nice duo of fresh rookies, kind of like a Dak and Zeke from a few years ago for the Cowboys. The Raiders are going to try that out for size. And Josh Jacobs is a great quarterback. And Josh Jacobs is a great running back with a little wear and tear on him because he was a rotational back in Alabama, and he could be a great running back in the NFL. Number 25, the Eagles. I went back and forth on this pick for a little bit, but I'm going to say they address their secondary here. I don't think they pass up Byron Murphy, the cornerback from Washington. I would argue probably one of the better or best cornerbacks in this class. You also have guys like Greedy Williams, I know, and Savage, but I think Byron Murphy is just a better overall player, or at least has the look and stats, and I don't know. I mean, if they wanted to take a real big risk, they can go for Greedy Williams, who I think is a little bit more high risk, high reward, but I think they'll go with the safe bet here with Byron Murphy. Number 26, the Colts. I feel they're going to shore up that defensive line with Dexter Lawrence from Clemson. And this makes a lot of sense because, again, the Colts pass rush and also defensive line is just anemic, and I feel like this is going to, make things a little bit better for him. Now, number 27, the Cardinals, I'm going to say because they are going to take the Raiders pick. They are going to address offensive line here, which they need to do, especially if they're going to keep Josh Rosen. They're going to go Andre Dillard here, the offensive tackle from Washington State. I mean, if I'm the Cardinals, I am getting as many picks as I possibly can and giving Josh Rosen more than a year and actually giving him an offensive line that he doesn't get slaughtered behind. And that's what I would do. But again, they might wind up going with Kyler Murray in one. But if they don't, I feel like they'll address both sides of the ball, both lines, both the defensive tackle position and then an offensive tackle here. 28, the Chargers. I feel like they're also going to address offensive line with Greg Little, the offensive tackle out of Ole Miss, because in that Patriots game, God, they needed all the help in the world. And, if Phillip Rivers is going to get a ring one day, this is the best chance that they have to. They have to actually protect him. Then moving on to 29, the Seahawks, because they just got it from good old Kansas City. They're going to go with Chris Lindstrom, the guard out of BC. Again, the Seahawks have needed some offensive line help, and why they've added some key pieces over the years. I feel like, especially that now they're paying Russell Wilson a cajillion dollars, they're going to need to protect him. Then number 30, the Green Bay Packers. They're also going to go offensive line with Dalton Risner, the offensive lineman from Kansas State. This just makes a lot of sense because we need a depth on that offensive line, right? Brian Bulaga is going to be gone next year, most likely, as our right tackle. Risner could fill that potential spot and make things a little bit easier for Aaron Rodgers. Then number 31, I'm going to go with guard and center here, Erik McCory from Texas A&M. The Rams recently just lost a few key personnel guys off of their offensive line, and this is just going to fill that spot. And then finally, number 32, the Patriots. I could see them going wide receiver here if they wanted to get crazy, but I feel like they're going to go with Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle from Mississippi State, because I just don't see him getting out of the first round. Top 5 pick if he didn't tear his ACL, but I think that he definitely, whoever winds up taking him is going to be a steal for the next season. So I feel like the Patriots are the kind of team where they have so much depth that Bill Belichick's like, it's okay, I got time. Tom Brady's going to play for another 6 years, so, why not? So, kill me. But let me know what you think down in the comments below about this iteration of the mock draft. Again, this will be the last one we do, considering when this video comes out, the mock draft will be tomorrow, finally, and we can stop doing mock drafts and all these draft breakdown videos. But let me know what you think. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TOMGROSSI Comedy, at Tom Grossi Comedy on all the social media you see down below. You can check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, and of course here on YouTube multiple times per week. We'll be live streaming the draft on Thursday. I'm also going to come out with a little sleeper video for Thursday as well. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.